everybody's probably aware that the governor mandated and the Supreme Court backed him up that we are to have no landlord-tenant eviction. No tenants can be evicted in a residential situation for non-payment of rent until the state of emergency is lifted. Who knows when that's going to be? So the only time, and I'm just not give you a brief synopsis here, don't hold me to everything here, but the commercial real estate, if someone doesn't pay their rent there, they can file an eviction notice there. And I think I've had 2 this month. How many have you had so far?
I've had 2 that I've actually been on my docket, but they've sent up a couple, but I've sent them back because the notices have demanded rent. Even though they've placed other reasons in the affidavit, their notices demanded rent.
So there are other reasons they can ask for if the property's been damaged or the end of the lease. But we've had very few of those. I mean, that's going to push we're going to have very large landlord-tenant dockets. And I think we've talked about this. Once it does resume, normally we have those at 9:30 on each of our civil days. I would expect us to have a special docket, each of us. So there'll be 5 different landlord-tenant dockets at a different time to kind of catch up, because there are going to be a lot of them.
Yeah.
Okay, we got some questions. JD Fleming asks, so for probate, do we just notice for an in-person date and only contact you for Zoom if it's an emergency / time sensitive matter?
No, we probably haven't been real clear on that. If you would like to do a Zoom hearing, we're, for the most part, are having those at our regularly scheduled time. They call our office and tell us that they'd like to do a Zoom hearing, give us their email so we can send them a link. Say our probate, each of us have probate court at 8:30. I will tell you this, because we've had a little extra time now that I don't have jury trials. I have been calling some of the attorneys after I've looked at the files and asked. Now, JD was one of them. We had one this last week that I just kind of thought, well, I'm going to knock this out now. And it looks like it's uncontested. And he had to deliver the original will to us. We have to have the original will and the order probating the will and appointing the executor administrator has to be sent to us. If all the paperwork's in there, then we can do these ahead of time. And I don't know about you, Judge Murphy. I think you're doing that.
I am.
I think the other judges are too. So we're not opposed to doing it, because sometimes you won't get a date for 3 or 4 weeks out. If you want to get it a little sooner, even if it's not an emergency. It used to be only emergencies, but I think now, since we have a little bit more free time, not having landlord-tenant cases, not having jury trials, not having fine payment, our schedules are a little more flexible. So, but if you want to wait till the day of court, give us at least a day's notice that you want to have it done by Zoom, so we can get prepared for that, and just give us your email.
Great. The next question from our president, Matthew Boyd. Have the judges discussed a voir dire questionnaire sent to the potential jurors prior to service to eliminate unnecessary interaction?
No, as Judge Bell stated, we're going to meet this afternoon, and we're going to kind of talk about what our jury trials are going to look like in the upcoming future. And I think any type of questionnaire to that sense, I guess we could do those preliminary questions, yes. But I would assume that the defense bar as well as the prosecution would want to have some sort of say-so on what questions may be sent out if we were to do something like that. But again, we just haven't gotten that far, because we knew the Supreme Court said we couldn't have any until first, I guess it was August, and now for us, September.
I had this is somewhat on those lines. I had a jury trial right before we were shut down in early March, and I only had one elderly lady that said she just didn't feel good about serving out of 30 people sitting out there. I asked them, I said, you know, this virus is hit, and is anybody worried? But I have a feeling now, that question is, a lot of folks just don't want to be here, and we would require them to wear a mask. You know, that's
That's
difficult.
gonna be a thing.
Yeah, we would probably put them, you know, spread them out in the courtroom to ask the voir dire questions. Then 3 people would sit on one row and 3 on the other row when they heard the case. I think that's what we would do. That spread them out enough, I think. But it's going to be a challenge.
Allison Conley asks, do you have any thoughts on how the UK legal clinic could help the district court reduce its small probate cases and small claims docket? Could the clinic help when evictions start with mediations in those cases? The clinic will start taking new cases on September 1st.
Well, we've talked about mediation. That's one thing. Judge Tackett actually is kind of taking the lead on that, and has talked with Josh Fain, who does the legal aid and pro bono type work. And one of the things that we've kind of suggested, and I think Josh has been involved in talking with some of the more prominent landlord attorneys, Stephen Marshall, maybe Tripp Redford, some of those guys that do a lot of those. And one of the things I think they've talked about is they really need to do the mediation prior to the filings.
Right.
Because once it gets to court, you know, there's no way we could mediate all these cases once they get to court. It's not like small claims. We don't have but, you know, 3 or 4 on a given day. But we could not mediate every one of these cases. And I think, just being frank about it, if these folks haven't paid for 6 months, I don't know how you're going to get the landlord to cave in and say, oh, I'm going to let them go. I mean, when I've talked to some of the landlord attorneys that just off the record, you know, I think they are trying to work with some of their folks. And if most of them right now are paying, there's only a few that are just decided, I'm not going to pay and I'm going to stay. It's probably 90% are actually trying to pay. It's the ones that they don't have a whole lot of sympathy for going 3 or 4 months without even trying to pay. And I don't think there's any way you can stop the eviction, even with mediation there.
Yeah.
But we would be glad. I know the legal clinic, Professor Connolly, you know, you all do a great job, and we love having your folks. I just don't know if the mediation part would work in the landlord-tenant area.
All right. Any questions? Feel free to populate the question and answer tool. Oh, here we go. Liz Bancroft asks, it was discussed at the Circuit Court Judges Forum that minorities will not be adequately represented in jury panels due to financial losses of COVID, and many individuals cannot afford to miss work. Has that been discussed in consideration of jury trials?
I will reiterate, I guess, again, what we said. We're going to talk about that, but that will play an issue. If having been a former prosecutor, and Liz, you know, it's hard to really get minority representation on jury panels often for other reasons, but it's not just minorities, but it's most of those who are in a lower socioeconomic status, because of course we pay our jurors $12 a day. They can't take off work for a full day to come sit for a jury. They just can't do that. And we should be willing to understand that's going to present an issue. We also have to have the reality that COVID has hit the African-American community a little bit harder in those health disparities. So they also, as Judge Bell has already stated, they're probably not going to feel comfortable coming to sit in a courtroom with a bunch of folks, even with a mask. So those will be issues that we'll have to look at, and we'll see. I never want to say a blanket that's definitely going to happen, but there will be things that we'll have to look at and be mindful of what those numbers look like to be sure that we have a jury panel that reflects our community.
Melissa Stewart asks, what is your suggestion on noticing parties for a Zoom hearing in a contested probate matter? Or do you prefer setting it for an in-person hearing at regular probate motion hours so everyone has notice to appear?
Right now, I think the contested hearings, we're trying to have those in court. I just feel like it's easier to handle the case. I don't necessarily like bringing people to court. We're not having that many people. I mean, I think it's drastically been reduced. I mean, normally I might have 15 probate cases. I think I've probably averaged 5. And most of those are either people that haven't filed their reports, final settlements, inventories, and the contested hearings. And, you know, if you all, the attorneys, think that it can work, you know, I'm open to that. I think we probably, all the judges would be to a Zoom hearing. But I think those are one of the few things that we probably have required, at least I've required hearings, and I've had very few so far. What do you think, Judge Murphy?
I agree. I think that we've just, I think that's all been just our discussions up here, not necessarily a hard written rule. But yeah, those contested matters, we would prefer to have in person. Now we recognize that they're just like with the juries, there will be attorneys and litigants and folks who are part of this process that do not feel comfortable, and they're in a high risk category and don't want to chance it and come into the courthouse. And those are discussions that we've had, and we have to be kind of flexible and amenable to how we can get the cases and our docket still moving even with that situation. But I think I think the question was, do we prefer the notice? I think if we notice it for an in-person, and I think also in our order, we've stated that if a participant feels that they need to appear through Zoom, they're supposed to contact our office at least an hour, if not a day before, so that we can send that link to them. And then if we get inside the hearing and it's a contested one and it's not one that we can flow with it Zoom and also the participant in person, then we'll figure out a better way to handle it. So we've learned to be a little bit more creative and flexible. I think I've been in, the other day we had a preliminary hearing. Our interpreters are appearing through Zoom. And so, you know, them being able to pick up through the courtroom, I literally had to pick up the laptop, sit it next to the microphone so that the defendant could hear what the interpreter was saying. And we just have to be willing to be flexible, even in the middle of a hearing, you know, just to make sure that everybody can participate. So.
Any more questions from the attendees? We don't have any questions at this time that someone could be typing. I've got a fun question.
Okay.
Where is the most, like, what have you seen on Zoom? Have you seen somebody from the beach? Have you seen somebody from the kitchen?
Well, I think I have been nominated for that answer
Okay.
only because I had a preliminary hearing and we had a defendant, and mind you, he was there at 8:30 when court started. He logged in, but he was not present in courtroom. He was out of custody. And when we started and when he logged on, first and foremost, our quick tip is, if you do have clients that are appearing and they're not with you in your office, if you can make sure that they're seated somewhere still, because otherwise they're moving their cameras and phones all over the place and we see their entire house, we see everything that's going on. So he walked around his entire apartment the entire time. So finally I had to stop his video because it was so distracting. So when we finally called his hearing, he came back on. He had a shirt on, at least I thought he did, but at some point the shirt was gone. And I don't know what happened halfway through the hearing, but the shirt was gone. At some point, I think he even brushed his teeth in the middle of the prelim. I was just like, and I kept a good poker face. And then at the end, I said, Mr. Edwards, it'd be nice that if you keep your shirt on. And he ran around and threw his Snuggie over himself. So, anybody representing your clients, if you could just tell them, court attire would be appreciated through the entire time. I think Tucker, he just throws on his same yellow jacket for all our hearings. So we know we're going to see it. But that's about all I have seen. We've had folks, just most people sitting on their couches. So,
Yeah, and truthfully, I don't think we care. The attorneys, sometimes I'll catch them and say, hey, you want to go and do this Zoom hearing right now? I've got all your stuff. Oh, I'm not dressed. I say, well, he said, I just got a t-shirt. I don't care. If we were going to do that, it's okay. I had one guy that actually was trying to act like he was in a coat and tie, and his dog was barking the bang, went to open the door, and I noticed he had on gym shorts when he went back to open the door. So this is very flexible times for us to allow different attire.
Yeah. Or the attorneys have mastered.
I want to ask Judge Murphy, did he win his case after taking his shirt off?
Well, I guess if winning means it was held to the Fayette County grand jury. But most of our attorneys have mastered this appearance. Like literally they have the cameras that only see this view and we only see, but again, as long as we can keep our dockets moving, I think that was kind of the angst for all of the judges up here, is that we were just like, how can we get court moving? Because we know our dockets are never going to be the same, at least for another year. And if back to normal, as we like to say, because I don't know if there's a back to normal.
Right. We do have a question. When we have, Matt Boyd asks, when we have trial, will the witnesses wear masks when they testify?
We've got plexiglass on the sides of the benches, to protect us. My thought is once they get up to the witness stand, they can pull their mask down. In fact, I've allowed that in court with the police officers who are testifying in preliminary hearings. And sometimes, quite frankly, guys, I can't understand what they're saying.
Right.
Even if they're standing, the litigants are standing there by themselves away from everyone, I'll say, please pull your mask down just for now so I can understand you. So I think we definitely would not make them wear their mask when they're testifying. Just when we walk in the courtroom, if any of you have seen this, we wear our mask anytime we're in public places, in the hallways, down on the first floor, walking out of the building. Even when we walk in the courtroom until we sit down, then we take our masks off. And the reason we do is we got plexiglass on each side of us. And we're very much in favor and will require masks for everyone that's in the courtroom until they come up to the podium or sit down in the witness chair.
I agree. I think it just makes it more difficult. As we said, we're all just trying to get through this process. So being able to understand them with a mask on, it's been difficult. So I agree.
All right, we don't have any questions at this time. Someone could be typing. I run out of fun questions too. Like, I don't even know.
Well, it's been a challenge, this whole, I'm sure, for everybody, and we're not the only ones. Just to talk out loud here, we're trying to make things work the best we can. I'm kind of one of these people that I like to plan. Isn't that right, Carrie?
That is correct.
I don't like change. And
No.
for me to be able to figure out Zoom and some of these tech things has been a real stressful for me, but it's worked out, and I know we probably got it better than most people. So we really do. I mean, but we didn't want to shut the courthouse down entirely. We're still kicking the can down the road. One of the things that we're doing that we're definitely being more lenient. We've been more lenient on bonds. We've been more, we understand the jail doesn't need to be at full capacity, so we've helped reduce the numbers in the jail. We all decided once we started back in June that if someone didn't show up for court, we were not going to issue a warrant like we always have. We were issuing summonses the first time. The second time, they're going to get a warrant. But we feel like, they were given this notice back in March, April to come to court in June. We're going to give them a free pass. Now, what that does to us, it kicks our docket further down the road. But we feel like this is extraordinary time, and we're going to be more lenient. Does that mean the jail is going to stay at a reduced capacity? No way. It's already, the police officers have gotten more vigilant. The people are not staying at home. They're starting to get out and commit some crimes. So our dockets are growing, and they're going to continue to grow, and it's going to get back to pretty much where it was before. We got some questions here, I see. Maybe.
Yes, we do. Anonymous attendee asks, will you be publishing your decision after the meeting today about jury trials in September?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Just let me know and I'll get that posted.
Thank you.
I'll send it to you, Dana.
Okay, great. Roland Merkel asks, is Judge Murphy amenable to Zoom for band practices?
Sure. Our lawyer band has been relegated to not being able to play. We have now missed 2 performances now. They wanted us to open Thursday Night Live, and we all thought they're crazy. We have a 12-person band, and down there in that little tight space at Fifth Third Pavilion wasn't gonna happen. So, but sure, let's do a Zoom meeting, Zoom rehearsal. We can do it.
For those of you who don't know, Judge Murphy is quite the singer. And he's got all kinds of talent.
Well, and Judge Bell gets the benefit of it because I'm right next door.
You don't want me singing, that's for sure.
Fred Peters asks, when are forcible detainers for non-payment of rent going to be resumed?
Not until after the state of emergency has been lifted by the governor. That's what the Supreme Court is telling us.
Yeah.
So who knows when that'll be?
Yeah.
I mean, I've not heard anything that the governor's ready to say the state of emergency is over.
Yeah.
So
I think even
sorry,
with the,
Fred.
yeah, I think even with the
rental properties, people aren't paying.
Because I think what we're going into phase 3 of the reopening, even with that, there's never been a mention from the governor in any of his press conferences or pressers that he's lifting the order. So, and I think as long as he's under the order, funding for the state kind of changes. So I don't see him lifting it anytime soon, given where our numbers are right now with the coronavirus. So.
And that's it. That's all the questions we have so far. Thanks, Roland.
We ought to get Fred Peters on here to discuss the new law that's taking effect tomorrow,
Yes.
July 1st, with interlock devices. He's already done, I think, his own seminar, but that's changing the game pretty drastically.
Yes.
All
So,
right. Fred, get ready. Get a panel together because I will be contacting you today. All right, that's all the questions that we have so far. Oh,
Judge
Oh my-
Thurston.
just in time.
we waited
Just
for
in
her.
time.
Are y'all finished?
We're
About
ready
to
for
be.
you. Go
But
ahead.
come on. Come
We've all
on.
made our speeches on our thoughts on the law. Are you ready to make yours?
Oh, yes, I have many thoughts on the loss. Hi, everyone. I'm very sorry. I just got off the bench. I'm sorry to miss all the good fun that I'm sure you've had. Are y'all getting ready to end, like, for real?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, now you're here. I have a. You want me to
Well,
share?
We ran out of questions. We ran out of questions. So maybe you'll produce more questions.
Did you give your tips, Judge Murphy?
To wear clothes? Yes.
Yes, to have on a shirt? Okay.
Yes, we did discuss.
All right.
Yeah.
Did anybody make sure everyone knew how awesome our staff is and to call them with any questions?
You can do that. Go ahead.
We have said it's been a real team effort, and I will congratulate our office staff, headed by Miss Howard. They have been have gone beyond their jobs. Let's put it that way. So it's been helpful. They've helped calm some of us down that needed to be calmed down. I won't say who that is, but the three people here, you probably know who it is.
It's him.
I know, like,
That's
Well,
probably
that was pretty much all that was on my list, other than just to be patient with us because we're still navigating this new normal. And I'm sure you all have talked about that. And, you know, every day we seem to get a change, or every day we have a problem with the system not working like I did this morning. But we just appreciate everybody's patience during this process. And seriously, if you have any questions, please call our amazing staff or one of us directly. We're happy to answer your questions.
And we do have another question. Do you prefer to have clients with their lawyer when appearing on Zoom, or is it acceptable to have them call in separately with your guidelines, Judge Murphy?
Judge Thurston will let you answer.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll let you answer.
So it is preferred that they be in your office, at least for me, just because I find it easier. You know, today I had someone on Zoom whose Zoom name was Sue. Well, I don't know who Sue is. I don't know if that's a lawyer, if that's a defendant, or a spectator. It's just helpful that if they're with you, we know who it is and what case it is and who goes with who. But if we understand that, you know, things happen and sometimes it's difficult to get in the same room. So if they will just have an identifiable Zoom name, that helps. It's not just Sue. That helps as long as they're on the screen with you, we can manage it. But I prefer you all to be in the same room, but understand that sometimes that's easier said than done.
Agree. And then one other thing is that if you just let us know. We were saying, as Judge Thurston said, if you contact our amazing staff, but you just tell us, hey, my client is going to be appearing. He's in Louisville, or he's here, or she's there. And they're going to appear through Zoom. This is their name or whatever. Because sometimes they'll pull up, you know, some of you are on here as phone number 859 such and such. So as long as we know that, then we can figure that out. I know we're probably coming to an end. My big word has been just grace. We're just extending as much grace. We want you all to extend it back to us. We're just trying to, again, just get through this and make sure that everybody feels like they've had their day in court, that it's not and then also that we're not backlogging our dockets until eternity.
Yes, for sure.
Judge Thurston's right that it doesn't, even the best person using Zoom, it doesn't always work. And so we are constantly having to start it over, or there'll be something that they've upgraded and it changes things. And so it really is amazing. It's worked fairly well, better than I thought it would, but it's definitely, there are some glitches.
Fred Peters would like to thank Judge Bell for changing the general order, allowing attorneys to pick up summons. So thank you from Fred.
Okay, Fred.
I'm sure
You're
others.
Look at the anonymous attendee with the anonymous.
I know.
Judge Thurston should be nominated for a special award for putting up with a crazy husband.
So is anonymous attendee that crazy husband? Is the anonymous attendee the crazy husband?
Who sent the link to my husband?
I didn't say it was me, because I sent it to everybody. If I had an email address, you got it.
It's got to be somebody else. I don't know who it is.
Might be you.
Not me. Ms. Howard, you got anything to add that the staff people need to know when they're contacting our office or?
Just try to give us as much time as possible before your court appearance so we can make sure we get the information to the correct judge in time before they take the bench. For any probate matters, if you need to bring down an original will, if you would either call us or have your runner call us, we can come down and meet you instead of dropping it off in the box, just to make sure we get it to the right judge. Everybody's been really good about calling, giving their email addresses. Just keep doing that and we'll get you to the right place and make sure that your case is heard.
And wear a shirt.
Wear a shirt.
Doesn't have to be fancy. Just
Be easy. Wear a shirt. And a mask if you're in court.
Yeah. All right. Well, it seems our questions have ended. Unless you guys have any more closing remarks, or do you want me to share that document, Judge Thurston?
Oh, did y'all talk about evictions?
a little bit.
Briefly.
Okay. We don't have to if it's already been discussed. Just know, I don't know, I'm sorry, again, I'm late, but if you all did talk about evictions and you all discussed the AOC verification form, it's readily available either from the clerk's office or AOC. Just make sure you review that form if you're getting ready to file an eviction action.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. It was great. I learned a lot.
Okay.
Thanks for having us, Dana.
Thanks,
And
Dana.
Thanks
Thanks
you
for
for setting all
organizing
these
this.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I need to get Vince to do one.
You should.
I should strong arm him into
He can
it.
answer questions that we can't, so.
What is the,
Fred has the
let
the
me,
number.
I'll share my screen.
Okay, great.
Put it on the screen.
Dana's going to share the screen, Fred.
We'll
Thank
let Judge Thurston talk about it if she wants to.
Okay, be happy.
Here it is.
Okay, so this is AOC form 1026.1. This is the verification of compliance form that the AOC and the chief put together for if you are going to file an action for an eviction while we are currently still operating under the state of emergency, and also the Supreme Court Order 2020-44. Basically, you need to go through here and read this and verify to us when you're filing your action that you are not filing for non-payment of rent. You are filing for another course of action, which includes commercial dwelling, or not a commercial dwelling, a commercial lease, or a violation of a term of a lease, etc. So please review that form. It's a very good form, and I can tell you I've had a few evictions, maybe about 6 or 8, and I have made sure that this form is in here each time because you're verifying to us that you understand you're complying with the law and proceeding with an eviction, even though we are under the state of emergency until told otherwise, essentially.
And to piggyback on that, and I kind of ran this through with Judge Bovier, he's treating it the same. If you've put on this verification of compliance form a reason that's other than non-payment of rent, however, the notice that you sent to your tenant demands rent, we're probably not going to hear it because they don't have a way of rectifying the issue if you're telling them that it has to be rent to pay. And that's kind of circumventing the issue if you're really still demanding rent from them. And maybe that's just me, but that's been kind of the stance that Judge Bovier has looked at. We're looking at this form, but we're also looking at what type of notice that you've provided to your tenant as to the reason why they're being evicted. So just make sure when you're putting that all in the record that it is truly for something other than non-payment of rent.
Is the verification of compliance form mandatory for the plaintiff to dismiss a forcible detainer action? Peter Brackney.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Is the verification of compliance form mandatory for the plaintiff to dismiss a forcible detainer action?
For the
Plaintiff?
for the
No, I don't think
plaintiff.
not to dismiss, no. If you're going to dismiss it, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I don't see anything. All right, guys, we have a YouTube channel where we're posting these. The circuit court one is already posted, and I will post this one. I did start recording a little late because I'm so awesome. So there's about 10 minutes cut off. Oh, Lord. I even set an
You missed
alarm.
my speech. I was the one talking. You cut me off.
In my speech, like I was like, wow. Oh. So, but that'll be posted to our YouTube channel by the end of the day, and in the e-news, I'll have some links to that so that anybody who wants to watch these two can go watch them anytime.
Thank you for organizing, Dana, and thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for participating today. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
And of course, if anybody has any questions, feel free to call our office and we'll do what we can to answer them.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.